got two really absolutely beautiful Omega Seamaster watches here. Doing this comparison in response to a request, and I think it's actually very valid. One, as I'll get into shortly, but just to start off with, the watch on the left is a Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean 2201.50 is the reference number. This is a 42mm case, 20mm lugs. A watch on the right is a Seamaster Professional with ceramic bezel. This watch has a very long reference number, which I will include in the video, but for the life of me I cannot remember. But this is a 41mm case with 20mm lugs. The watch on the left, the Planet Ocean, has not been made for at least, I would say, close to 10 years. The SMPc on the right, I think, probably was last made around 2017, 2018. So they are from two different generations. However, currently on the pre-owned market, I would put these two watches in sort of the same price category. Sometimes you can find a Planet Ocean for less than a good SMPc, and other times a good Planet Ocean like this would cost more than an SMPc, but they are roughly in the same league. And so if you're looking to acquire something of this category in your collection, I can understand that someone will be interested in both of these watches. What they do share is that they're both super well made and really beautiful, and much more so in person. But I'll go over what I feel are the differences between these, and perhaps what would impact someone's decision to get one. So right off the bat, the Planet Ocean is the more utilitarian, more tool-like watch, both in terms of its appearance, its finishes, and its functionality. So right here you can see this watch carries a lot of the heritage of the original Seamaster 300 watches from the late 50s and 60s, which were basically, I would say, probably the first divers. Omega did make watches suitable for depths of water prior to that, but really the Seamaster line as we know it, meaning not as a dressy watch, which it was prior to those years, really began with those watches. And there's a lot in this watch that is similar to that watch. I think I've covered that in a prior video, but you can see for yourself. I could put up some reference numbers if anyone's interested to check it out, but there's a lot of design language here that directly came from a very purpose-made watch. Besides that, you have a black dial, but it's very matte. It's not it's not a luxurious looking dial. It's really a functional looking dial that doesn't reflect light. You have the printed numerals for ease of reading, and you have the aluminum bezel insert, which again is not flashy. It's not made for a luxurious look, but it's actually very functional. You're not going to break it. It's not going to be damaged to the point that it cannot be repaired. Yes, it might scratch, but it serves its purpose. It's definitely more of a functional material than ceramic is for a bezel insert. The crowns on the Planet Ocean are pretty substantial sized, so to enhance ease of use. Here's the helium release crown, which no one uses, but and then you have the twisted lugs are found on the Planet Ocean, much like the other Seamaster watches. However, they're not as curved on the Planet Ocean in comparison to the Seamaster Professional, and I think that's in line with this watch trying to stick to more of a tool watch look, and not necessarily emulate a piece of fancy jewelry on the wrist. Now, I love wearing this watch on NATO straps, Zulu straps, so I've never put it on its bracelet. I will show the bracelet a little later, but the bracelet similarly really lacks any high polished surfaces, and it's more of there for function rather than looks. And in comparison, the SMPc is a much flashier watch. There's a lot of shiny things on this watch. The dial is a gloss black with a very like a lacquer finish, and really reflects a lot of light. The bezel insert, as mentioned before, is ceramic. Again, very shiny, doesn't scratch, which is really nice, but also creates a very eye-catching look. The bracelet on the Seamaster Professional is much more like jewelry to me than a bracelet that exists for functionality. You've got 4 individual slim, high polish portions in each link. It's an intricate looking bracelet. It is somewhat polarizing. Some people don't like it, but there's no doubt to me that this is meant to be sort of almost like a piece of jewelry. It is masculine looking, but it's still it still has a jewelry aspect to it. And overall, I think the SMPc is a kind of watch that non-watch people, the general public, someone looking for something just that looks nice to wear, would pay a lot of attention to this watch. As I said, because of the shiny, high polished surfaces and the sort of intricacy and complexity in what you're looking at. Another example of why this watch puts form over function, the bezel. The bezel on the Seamaster SMPc has this interesting scallop design, but it's not very useful. It's difficult to grip even when new, and when these points get worn down with age, this bezel can become very difficult to turn. So I'll just demonstrate it. Obviously, when it's in pretty good shape, as is the case with this watch, it's not hard to turn. But you do have to put some pressure. You have to grip the bezel with some pressure to turn it. In contrast, the bezel on the Planet Ocean is much more functional. It's knurled. These are almost sharp, and you immediately can get a grip with very minimal pressure. Here, I'll just turn the bezel so you can see. It's very similar bezel action between the two. I think they probably use a similar click spring, but there's no doubt that this bezel is much easier to turn, and to me, it seems like it'll always be easy to turn. This is not something that's going to get worn off easily and impede the usability of this bezel. I mentioned the crowns on the Planet Ocean being somewhat bigger. Conversely, the crown is pretty small on the SMPc. Again, I think it's yet another example where form has been elevated over function in the SMPc. If you check out the thickness of the two watches, Planet Ocean is a little thicker. The bezel sort of stands proud from the case, whereas you have a more integrated look on the SMPc. In general, and I'm sure you can tell where I'm going with this, the SMPc is more of a watch that for someone who wants to have a beautiful shiny object, something that's more like a piece of jewelry. Even though it's a perfectly competent watch and suitable for any activity, ocean water, deep water, all of that. But the essence of this watch is more something with a more fashion tilt. And the Planet Ocean is much more made in the mold of something utilitarian. It's obviously still a luxury piece. The quality is apparent in the hand and on the wrist, but the DNA of this watch is much more comes from a much more utilitarian origin, and it frankly is the more functional of the two. So I think given those differences, someone can decide which of these watches is more suitable for their needs and interests, or you can be like me and get both of them, because as I said, they're different enough to me to warrant having one of each in a collection. I definitely think between the two, the Planet Ocean looks absolutely amazing on other straps besides the bracelet. There's the rubber strap for these also looks really nice on them. And lastly, I didn't mention before, but the movement, these two happen to both have the 2500D coaxial movement. That's not the current movement Omega's using for the Seamasters. It's more simple, but a lot of Planet Oceans, or actually a majority, are probably 2500C movements, or you might even find a few that have older movements than that. I have personally not found much of a difference between the 2500C or D. They've been both reliable for me. So I think movement-wise, it's a pretty even draw between these two watches. And how they wear on the wrist is also very similar. I mean, their dimensions are basically off by just 1 millimeter in diameter and a slight difference in thickness, but they really wear very, very close in size. So it really comes down to aesthetics and the type of watch that you're looking for, in my opinion, as to where you'd end up regarding a preference between these two. So I'm curious to hear what other people think about these two watches. As I said, in the pre-owned market, they're pretty much in the similar price category for now. You can debate which one is the better deal. I would say probably the Planet Ocean, given that this was a more, this was a 600 meter, sort of more towards the top of the line watch from Omega. That the pre-owned prices on these are really good right now, given the comparison to the current models. Anyway, tell me what you think. I'd like to hear what others have to say about these. I mean, my verdict is they're both awesome watches, and I'm very happy to have both. All right, till next time.